All right, so get ready because we're about to explore a part of human history that they probably didn't teach you in school.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting. We're doing a deep dive today into the hidden history of the human race
Ooh,
by Michael A. Cremo and Richard L. Thompson.
okay.
And this book is really something, it makes you question everything you thought you knew about human evolution.
It's so interesting because this book, it presents all of these archaeological discoveries that suggest that, well, humans, or,
Right.
or at least beings that were very human-like,
Yeah.
could have been around a lot longer than we've been taught, like
Yeah.
millions of years.
Right, right. We always hear about, humans evolving over millions of years.
Right.
But what if there were I don't know, periods where human-like beings were walking the earth way before that?
Exactly. And one of the first examples they bring up is the Laetoli footprints in Tanzania.
Uh-huh.
Have you heard of these?
Yeah.
They're about 3.6 million years old,
Wow.
and get this, they look almost identical to modern human footprints.
So 3.6 million years ago, that's way before Homo sapiens and all that.
Right. So the question is, whose footprints are they?
Yeah, who made them?
Right. The problem is, if you look at the fossils, the foot bones from back then,
Right.
from the creatures that we think were our ancestors at that time,
Yeah.
Australopithecines, which were more ape-like, their feet don't match the Laetoli prints.
So we've got these perfectly human-looking footprints, but millions of years before, humans should have had feet like that.
Right.
That's kind of a big mystery, isn't it?
It really is. And it actually brings up this really important point that Cremo and Thompson make throughout the whole book,
Yeah.
which is this idea of a knowledge filter in science.
A knowledge filter. What's that?
It's this concept that, even when you have a discovery that's well documented, if it goes against what the scientists at the time think is the most likely, or the accepted theories, it can kind of be pushed aside or ignored.
It just doesn't fit, so it's easier to just say it's wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
And a perfect example of this is an archaeologist named Thomas E. Lee.
Okay.
Back in the 1950s, he was doing some digging at Chiquianda in Canada,
Okay.
and he found some stone tools.
Uh-huh.
And what was special about these tools is that, based on the layer they were in,
Right.
they could have been up to 125,000 years old.
Wow. So that's much older
Way older.
than people thought humans were in North America, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So you'd think people would be excited, right? Big discovery changes what we know about when people
Yeah.
first came to North America.
Totally.
Well, he actually faced a lot of resistance from the scientific community.
Really?
Oh, yeah. He even said that he was ostracized, basically.
They just rejected him and his work?
Yeah, they misrepresented his work.
Hmm.
And he had an incredibly hard time getting published after that.
So instead of embracing this new evidence that might change our understanding, they just shut him down.
Exactly.
That's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how many other discoveries have been, dismissed over the years,
Yeah, for the same reason.
just because it doesn't fit with what we think we know.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that Cremo and Thompson really highlight in this book is that they found this pattern
Okay.
of these types of discoveries that have been met with resistance throughout history.
Okay.
And they kind of take us on a journey back in time,
Okay.
starting in the 19th and early 20th centuries.
Okay.
And they bring to light all of these discoveries that were made that, kind of got swept under the rug.
What kind of discoveries?
Well, for example, there's this discovery from St. Prest, France,
Uh-huh.
back in 1863,
Oh, wow.
where they found cut marks
What marks?
on rhinoceros bones alongside these primitive stone tools called eoliths.
Geoliths. Okay.
And what's so interesting is that these were found in deposits from the Pliocene era.
Meaning that they could be millions of years old.
Exactly.
Wow.
And then there's another example from the Old Crow River in Canada,
Okay.
where they found bones that had been intentionally modified.
They were used as tools.
Potentially, yeah. And these also predate the accepted timeline for humans in North America.
Okay.
And then there's this other case from Monte Aperto in Italy,
Uh-huh.
where they found cut marks
More cut marks.
on whale bones
Mm.
from the Pliocene era.
Wow.
And guess what? They also found matching flint tools nearby.
So it seems like all these discoveries are from places and times where conventionally humans weren't supposed to be.
Right.
What else did they find?
Okay, well, this was pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's a discovery from San Valentino, Italy,
Okay.
and they found a bone
Okay.
that could have been from a Pliocene elephant
Okay.
or a rhinoceros
Okay.
with a perfectly round hole in it.
A perfectly round hole.
Yeah.
How could that?
It was too precise to be natural.
Wow. Like someone drilled into it?
Right. And then, on top of all that, there were discoveries from the Norfolk and Suffolk coast in England
Okay.
where they found whale bones that had been worked on.
Worked. Like, what do you mean worked?
Well, like they could have been used as tools or weapons.
Oh, okay.
And these bones could be anywhere from 400,000 to 1.75 million years old.
Wow. Okay, so tell me more about these eoliths that you mentioned.
Yeah.
What are they exactly?
So they're basically like the first, really rudimentary attempts at tool making.
Okay.
They're really simple objects
Mm-hmm.
made from stone.
Okay.
And a lot of times they're so basic
Yeah.
that it's hard to tell if someone actually made them on purpose or if they're just naturally formed.
Oh, so like just rocks that kind of look like tools.
Exactly. And that's where they get really controversial.
Yeah, I can see how that would be tricky.
Yeah, and one of the key figures in this whole Eolith debate was this guy named Benjamin Harrison. Back in the late 1800s, he was finding these eoliths,
Okay.
along with some more recognizable like Paleolithic tools,
Okay.
in these gravels on the Kent Plateau in England.
Okay.
And here's the big thing. These gravels were potentially from the Pliocene era,
So meaning,
meaning that the tools could be 2 to 4 million years old.
wow,
That's a
huge difference.
It is. So that would push back the timeline for tools in England by millions of years.
Yeah. So who else was involved in this debate?
Well, there was another researcher named J. Reed Moir,
Okay.
and he found even older eoliths in East Anglia, England,
Older. Like how old?
potentially 2.5 million years old.
Wow.
He was a big, big advocate for eoliths.
Okay.
He argued that many of them showed clear signs of being made by humans.
Mm-hmm.
He said that some of them looked very similar
Okay.
to tools made by Homo sapiens.
So us.
Yeah, like us today.
Wow. So he's saying that if we can make tools like this, then
Right.
why couldn't someone like us have made them millions of years ago?
Exactly. But unfortunately, just like Thomas Lee, he faced a lot of pushback for his
Yeah.
findings.
Really? Why is that? Was it just because it goes against the accepted timeline, or is there more to it?
Well, part of the problem was that there wasn't a really clear way to tell if a stone was chipped naturally or if it was intentionally shaped by a human.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem.
And that's where this thing called the Barnes angle comes in.
The Barnes angle, what's that?
So there's this guy, Alfred S. Barnes,
Okay.
and he developed this method
Uh-huh.
where he claimed he could measure the angle of the flaking on a stone
Okay.
and tell if it was human-made or not.
That sounds pretty useful. Did it help to solve the debate?
Well, not really.
Yeah.
It actually ended up being used to discredit a lot of eoliths.
Oh. So how did that happen? It was supposed to be objective, right?
Right, but the problem was that even though it was presented as objective, it was still based on certain assumptions about how humans make tools.
So it could miss tools that were made in a way that they didn't think of.
Exactly.
Interesting.
It just shows you how even when you have a seemingly objective scientific method, it can still be influenced by the biases of the time.
Right. So it's important to keep an open mind and question assumptions, even in science.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about all these interesting tools and discoveries, but what about actual human remains?
Yeah.
Did they find any skeletal evidence that backs up these claims of, an older human presence?
They do, and that's where things get even more interesting. They actually uncover a whole bunch of controversial fossil discoveries that could completely rewrite the timeline of human evolution.
Whoa, okay. I want to hear more about that.
Yeah.
But I think we need to take a little break to process all this information first.
Okay.
We'll be right back to dive deeper into those controversial fossil finds.
All right.
Okay, so we're back, and we're ready to dig into even more evidence that challenges the conventional timeline of human history.
Yeah, it's really fascinating stuff.
Before the break, we were talking about all these tools and artifacts, but now it's time to get to the really juicy stuff. The fossils.
Yes, fossils are often seen as like the ultimate proof
Yeah.
that a species actually existed, right?
Right.
So when you find, human-like fossils in places and time periods where, according to our current understanding, they shouldn't be,
Right.
it really throws a wrench into everything.
It really does. So where do Cremo and Thompson take us next in their fossil exploration?
Well, they introduce us to this whole category of discoveries that they call anatomically modern human fossils in early contexts.
Anatomically modern human fossils in early contexts.
Yeah, so basically these are skeletal remains that, if they're dated correctly,
Okay.
would suggest that humans like us, like, Homo sapiens,
Right.
were walking the Earth much, much earlier than mainstream science currently accepts.
So we're talking about fossils of people who look just like us,
Yeah.
but found in layers that date back millions of years.
That's it. And one of the most well-known cases is the Galley Hill skeleton.
The Galley Hill skeleton.
Yeah, it was discovered in England back in 1888.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, and it was found in these Middle Pleistocene deposits,
Okay.
which could be as old as 330,000 years.
Wow.
And the remarkable thing is that the anatomy of this skeleton
Yeah.
is incredibly modern.
Like how modern?
It looks just like a skeleton you might find today.
But wait, but didn't we learn that, anatomically modern humans like
Right.
like us only emerged around like 100,000 years ago?
Yeah, that's the problem.
How does that, I mean,
That's the big question.
yeah.
Because the Galley Hill skeleton doesn't fit the accepted timeline.
Yeah.
Most scientists today say that it must be a more recent burial
Okay.
that somehow got mixed into those older layers.
So it's like a contamination issue.
Yeah, they call it an intrusive burial.
Okay, so they're basically saying that like someone was buried there much later
Right.
and the skeleton just happened to end up in a much older layer.
Yeah.
But couldn't that be said about, any discovery that challenges the current narrative?
Well, that's the argument that Cremo and Thompson make.
Yep.
They point out that this intrusive burial explanation
Right.
is often used as a default
Okay.
when a discovery doesn't fit the prevailing theories, even when there's no real evidence to support it.
It's like saying, we know humans couldn't have been around that long ago.
Right.
So this skeleton must be a mistake.
Yeah,
But what if it's not a mistake? What if it's telling us something really important?
exactly. And it's not just the Galley Hill skeleton.
Oh.
They highlight a number of other controversial discoveries.
Like what?
Well, there's a human jaw from the Vauxhall Quarry in England that's potentially 2.5 million years old.
Wow.
And then there are the Castanello skeletons from Italy
Okay.
that were found in Pliocene strata that could be 4 million years old.
4 million years.
Yeah.
That's just, it's mind-blowing.
It is.
That completely changes, everything we think we know about, human evolution.
It does.
But you said that these discoveries were controversial. Like,
Yeah.
what was the pushback against them?
Well, in many cases, the scientists who made these discoveries were very careful. They considered all the possibilities, like intrusive burials.
Okay.
And they went to great lengths to show that these human remains
Yeah.
were found undisturbed in their original place with no signs of being from a later period.
So why were their findings rejected?
It seems like no matter how compelling the evidence was,
Yeah.
it just couldn't overcome the prevailing paradigm.
Like it was just too radical to even consider.
Yeah, it's like there was this invisible barrier preventing these discoveries from being fully accepted
Right.
into the mainstream scientific narrative.
So it's not just about Europe, right?
Right.
Did Cremo and Thompson find discoveries in other parts of the world?
They did. They actually take us on a global tour of anomalies. And one of the most fascinating stops is South America.
South America?
Yeah, they talk about this Toxodon femur.
A toxodon?
Yeah, with an embedded arrowhead
What? Hold on.
that was discovered in Argentina
Okay.
by Carlos Amaquino.
Okay, wait, back up.
Okay.
A toxodon, remind me what a toxodon is.
Oh, right. A Toxodon was this large, extinct mammal
Okay.
that lived in South America
Okay.
millions of years ago.
Okay.
Kind of like, picture a rhino crossed with a hippopotamus,
Okay. Okay, got it.
and they found an arrowhead embedded in its femur.
So does that mean that someone was hunting these creatures
Right.
millions of years ago?
But that's what it suggests.
With bows and arrows?
Yeah, potentially.
That's amazing.
And to make it even more intriguing, the layer where this find was made,
Uh-huh.
the Chapadmalal Formation,
Okay.
could be as old as 3 million years.
So we could be talking about ancient South American hunters
Yeah.
taking down these massive creatures with advanced weaponry millions of years ago.
It's incredible.
It really changes like everything we think we know about early humans in South America.
I know. It's mind-blowing.
So it's not just the arrowhead, right?
No. They also talk about discoveries of stone tools
Okay.
and evidence of fire use
Okay.
in South America from formations that date back to the Pliocene and Miocene epochs.
Wow, so we're seeing this pattern emerge again,
Right.
with evidence from multiple continents suggesting that humans were around
Yeah.
much, much earlier than we thought.
It really makes you wonder, what if we've only just scratched the surface
Yeah.
of human history?
What if there's a whole chapter, or even like multiple chapters,
Yeah.
missing from the story that we've always been told?
That's what makes it so fascinating, right?
Yeah, it's incredible.
It really forces us to confront the limits of what we know
Yeah.
and to consider that the past might be much more complex and mysterious
Right.
than we ever imagined.
You know, when we first started talking about this book, I thought it was mainly going to be about, ancient discoveries like
Right.
fossils and tools.
Yeah.
But I remember that Cremo and Thompson also go into something much more recent,
Yes.
modern day accounts of, quote, living ape men.
I love that part.
It's like they're bringing the mystery into the present day.
Into the present day.
It's so cool. So let's talk about these living ape men.
Okay.
We're talking about creatures like Bigfoot,
Yeah.
the Yeti almost. Right.
Exactly.
It almost sounds like, I don't know, like mythology.
Right, like something out of legend.
Yeah. But what's interesting is that these creatures,
Yeah.
they're not just figments of our imagination.
Right, they're not just made up.
They're really embedded in the cultures and folklore of the regions where they're reported.
Yeah, and these aren't just recent stories either. They're
Uh-huh.
traditions that have been passed down
Yeah.
for generations,
Right.
woven into the very fabric of their societies.
So what's the connection then between these living ape men? Yeah.
And the hidden history of the human race.
Well, that's one of the things that Cremo and Thompson explore.
Okay.
They ask, could these creatures be related
Okay.
to those ancient human ancestors that we were talking about earlier?
So are they suggesting that these creatures are like remnants of these ancient lineages?
That's one possibility.
Wow.
That they've managed to survive all this time,
Yeah.
hidden from our view.
Wow. That's a really fascinating idea.
It really is.
It adds a whole other layer of intrigue
I know.
to the human story.
Absolutely.
Okay. I am definitely hooked. I want to hear more about these creatures.
Yes.
But first, why don't we take a quick break?
All right.
And then we'll come back and dive into the world of Sasquatch and Yeti and all that good stuff.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I'm ready to hear more about these living ape men.
Yeah.
Gotta admit, I'm a little skeptical,
Okay.
but I'm also really intrigued by it all.
I know. It's definitely like stepping into a real life X-Files episode. It really is. So where do we even start? Which creature are we going to talk about first?
Well, I think we have to start with the most famous one of all, right?
Okay.
Sasquatch.
Bigfoot.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. Bigfoot. I mean, that creature has captured the imagination of so many people
I know.
for decades.
Especially here in North America.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I remember watching those documentaries as a kid,
Yeah.
hoping that they would like finally catch one on camera.
Right.
So what kind of evidence do Cremo and Thompson present for Sasquatch?
Well, they start by talking about the sheer number of eyewitness accounts.
Eyewitness accounts.
And not just from, random people,
Right.
but from credible witnesses.
Okay.
Like scientists,
Okay.
experienced outdoorsmen.
Right.
We're talking about thousands of reports over centuries, all
Oh.
describing a similar creature. Large, hairy, bipedal, incredibly strong.
So lots of people claim to have seen it, but is there any like physical evidence? What about like footprints?
Right, footprints. Footprints are actually one of the most commonly reported pieces of evidence for Sasquatch.
Really?
Oh, yeah. There's actually a whole science dedicated to studying footprints.
Is there really?
It's called ichnology.
Ichnology. Wow. Okay.
And Cremo and Thompson highlight some pretty compelling cases,
Okay.
like, those massive tracks
Yeah.
found in the Bluff Creek area of California.
Oh yeah, where they filmed that famous
The Patterson-Gimlin film?
the Patterson-Gimlin film. Yes. That's the one with that grainy footage of a creature
Yeah.
walking through the clearing.
Yes. It's one of the most debated pieces of evidence in the whole Bigfoot world.
Do people think it's real or fake?
Well, that's the thing. Cremo and Thompson acknowledge that it could be a hoax,
Right.
but they also point out that after, decades of analysis,
Yeah.
no one has actually proven that it's fake.
Mm.
And even if it is a hoax, the fact that it's caused so much debate
Right.
and so much analysis, it just goes to show how much this creature has captured our imagination.
It's amazing how, just a few seconds of grainy footage can create such a lasting mystery.
So you know.
But okay, so if we put the Patterson-Gimlin film aside for a moment,
Yeah.
are there other pieces of evidence that they talk about?
Yeah, they mentioned things like hair samples that have been analyzed,
Okay.
and they don't match any known animal.
Ah,
And then there are these strange vocalizations that have been recorded
okay.
that sound almost human-like,
Okay.
but they can't be attributed to any known species.
Wow.
So it's like, all these tantalizing clues,
Yeah.
but none of them quite provide the definitive proof
Right, right.
that everyone's looking for.
Right, so what about the Yeti?
Oh, the Yeti.
Yeah, the Yeti, that elusive Himalayan creature.
I know. Even more shrouded in mystery than Bigfoot.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that one.
Well, it's really ingrained in the folklore and mythology
Okay.
of the Himalayan people. They've been telling stories about this creature for centuries.
Right, so it's not just like a recent.
No, it's been around for a long time.
Wow. And I've even heard some really experienced mountaineers like
Yeah.
Edmund Hillary,
Yes.
Reinhold Messner. They've reported seeing Yeti tracks or even like glimpses of the creature itself.
Exactly.
Wow, if those guys are seeing it, that definitely like adds some credibility, doesn't it?
It does. It really makes you wonder
Yeah.
what's out there.
But just like with Sasquatch, I mean, is there any physical evidence beyond like eyewitness accounts?
Right. Well, there have been claims
Okay.
of hair samples
Okay.
and even fecal samples
Okay.
that some people think belong to the Yeti.
Okay.
But, when they've been analyzed, the results have often been inconclusive.
Oh.
And then, of course, there are the famous photographs of Yeti footprints in the snow.
Yeah.
But even those have been debated.
Right.
And, people are skeptical about them.
So again, lots of intriguing accounts and stories,
Yeah.
but no smoking gun.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So what about the Almas? What makes that one different?
Well, the Almas is really interesting
Okay.
because it's often described as being smaller
Okay.
and more human-like
Okay.
than Bigfoot or the Yeti.
More human-like. Okay. How so?
Well, witnesses often say that it has reddish-brown hair,
Okay.
that it walks upright,
Uh-huh.
and that it even shows signs of intelligence, like using tools
Really?
or building shelters.
Wow. So more human-like, you're saying.
Yeah, it's really intriguing.
That's really interesting. So do people think that the Almas might be like more closely related to humans than Bigfoot or the Yeti?
That's a possibility that's been explored.
Okay.
Some researchers even believe that the Almas could be a surviving remnant of Neanderthals
Wow. Neanderthals.
or even Homo erectus.
Wow. Okay. So instead of being like a totally separate species,
Right?
these creatures could be like echoes of our own past.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
That's a really cool idea.
Living in these remote, hidden parts of the world.
Yeah, it really adds another dimension to the human story.
It really does. And, Cremo and Thompson, they don't shy away from exploring these possibilities.
Right.
Even though they're, considered fringe or outside of the mainstream.
Yeah, it seems like that's kind of a running theme in their book.
Right.
This idea of like challenging what we think we know
Exactly.
and being open to alternative possibilities.
Yeah, keeping an open mind.
Even if they sound a little crazy at first.
Exactly. And, sometimes those crazy ideas
Yeah.
turn out to be the most groundbreaking discoveries.
That's true. So after exploring all these mysteries, the ancient tools, the fossils,
Right.
and these modern day accounts of, ape men,
Yeah.
what's the takeaway? What are Cremo and Thompson really trying to say with this book?
I think at its core, their message is that we shouldn't be afraid to question,
Yeah.
to keep an open mind,
Yep.
and to consider that the story of human evolution might be much more complex
Right.
and mysterious than we've been led to believe.
Yeah, it's not necessarily about saying that every single discovery
Wow.
is definitive proof of
Right.
an alternative history, but it's about raising questions,
Yeah,
challenging us to think critically about the evidence.
exactly. Like they're saying, don't just accept what you've been told.
Right.
Look at the evidence for yourself
Yeah.
and draw your own conclusions.
And, sometimes those conclusions might take us down some pretty unexpected paths.
Exactly. But that's what makes it so exciting. It's a
Yeah.
journey of discovery.
It really is. So what do you think? Are we alone in this vastness of time?
Yeah.
Or is there a hidden history of the human race just waiting to be uncovered? A history that could completely change our understanding of who we are
Yeah.
and where we come from.
It's a fascinating question.
It is, and we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.